Hello and welcome to today's Bloomerang Academy class. I'm just going to get started a few seconds early just to get it pack in as much as we can with emails and our Mailchimp integration. My name's Scott and I'm a support team lead here at Bloomerang. I've been at Bloomerang for almost 2 years now. Love every single day here. It's quite an adventure. We're able to build this product from the ground up and be able to share what we're learning in the nonprofit world with everyone. And essentially, the goal is to help you all and your nonprofits and your organizations generate money and fundraise and retain those donors. But love working here. Of course, outside of Bloomerang, I'm just like a normal person. Love biking, playing music. And I do have a dog who's in the other room. He's being very good today, but the mailman has not come. So if you do hear some barking pretty soon, that will be Rocco. And just to make sure you're in the right place, we are going to be covering Bloomerang emails and the Mailchimp integration. So here's a quick agenda for today. I'm going to try to zoom through our email editor in Bloomerang. So we're going to be working mainly on how to customize a confirmation email. So one that you could attach to a Bloomerang online form and be able to customize how your donors will receive that confirmation after they've submitted a donation. So we will go through that as much as we can. That way we have enough time to get through the Mailchimp integration. We're going to focus a lot of our attention there today. How to connect your Mailchimp account to Bloomerang, filter the audience that you would like to push to Mailchimp, and then how to apply that list using a tag in Mailchimp and send to your Bloomerang constituents a Mailchimp designed email. And then towards the end, we will also try to tackle how to report on these interactions and even see some of the statistics on those delivery and open rates for your emails. So a couple things before we really jump into the database is just there's going to be some vocab terms that are different between Mailchimp and Bloomerang, and also just some settings that we need to be aware of. Just for some general guidelines, if you're using Bloomerang for emails, you don't have to jump to Mailchimp. So this is not something where we are replacing Bloomerang's email editor with Mailchimp. This is an additional service. It's an offer that we're allowing. So if you have Mailchimp and you are very comfortable with using Mailchimp to design emails, then this is a way and an avenue for you to use Mailchimp, but be able to record those interactions in Bloomerang. But with Bloomerang emails, you can send any type of email. So whether it's a transaction email or an interaction, like a volunteer hours, or even just some that are based on the donation itself. In Mailchimp, it can only be constituent information. So no transactional data or no interaction data can be pushed to Mailchimp. For same thing with merge fields, you can use any merge field in emails with Bloomerang emails. And if you're designing the email in Mailchimp, it will only be constituent merge fields. Email tracking will have the tracking tab in Bloomerang. So once you send a Bloomerang email, you have that tracking tab where you can see all the statistics on those delivery. Whereas in Mailchimp, we won't have that available in Bloomerang, but you will be able to see those reports and those statistics in your Mailchimp account. But either way, if you're sending a Bloomerang mass email or if you're sending through Mailchimp, interactions will be recorded in your Bloomerang database. And just for a bird's eye view of how we are seeing this integration and as far as setting it up, is Bloomerang is our main goal is fundraising and retaining donors. So you're able to create those segments based on constituent data, pull in the list of donors you are wanting to see and to contact, and then you're going to be able to push that list or those segments to Mailchimp. And then you can use Mailchimp to design any kind of email you would like with Mailchimp's tools and their features. And then from Mailchimp, they will be pushing back those interactions to be recorded in Bloomerang. And here's some links just for your reference after this class. If you need a little bit more help with setting up emails in Bloomerang or the basics of Mailchimp, you can check out those links. Those will be available. Okay, let's dive into Bloomerang, and we're going to get started with Bloomerang emails. So let me pull up my demo database. All right, so here we are on the dashboard. And if we're going to be starting a new customized confirmation email, first thing is we'll be clicking this email icon on the left side. And you'll notice there's a couple, or really a new feature for email settings. So notice if I click on here, this is now where our email interests will be and deliverability settings. I won't cover these too much right now. We may talk a little bit later on these, but here you can edit your email interests. If you need to adjust your organization information or check out how to get the best deliverability rate, you can click on this link. And then this is also where you will set up your Mailchimp account. And we'll get to that in the latter part of today's class. So I'll click on this email icon and I'm going to select email templates. Okay, so here's this, the screen shows all of my current email templates. If you don't have any, then it'll prompt you with start your very first email template. And there's some filters at the top if you want to see those that are active, those that have been deactivated, as well as some other filters, such as those that have been sent or scheduled. And you'll notice that there's now an option for push to Mailchimp. So to start a customized email, let's first, we'll start a new one. So I'll click this new button up here. And we have some starter templates, and we made these brand new COVID-19 templates, and we also have Mailchimp templates. So I'm gonna click this COVID-19 template, and you'll see there's a good handful of templates that we've created that have just some language that we have added in there to help jumpstart the process of writing up an email or writing up a newsletter. So there might be some helpful hints in there, or just some helpful language to use and to customize to really just whatever goal you're trying to accomplish. And so really any of these starter designs will be fine. In this case, I'm going to select the what we're doing template. And so as this loads up, we'll have the design tab, the filter tab, and this details tab. So I'm going to start with the details. So on the left side, there's everything that you and your Bloomerang users will be able to see on the back end. So just the name of the template. So I'll just call this a new custom confirmation email. Now, if I want to set this as a confirmation email for an online giving form, the purpose will need to be set to acknowledgement. For email interests, I need to select at least one. Technically, this will be sent to the donor right after submission, so I'm going to select all of them in this case. And on the right side is going to be everything that the recipient sees, or the donor sees after they've received their email. So the subject of the email, so I might just put thank you for your support. And the from name, I'm going to put my name. And from email address, I'm going to put my work email address. All right, so that's all filled out since it's everything in green is required, so we're all good. So now I'll click on this filter tab. Since we're making, again, a custom confirmation email, I don't need to filter this, but I do need to change the type of the email. We can see the type of the email based on the filters that are being used. So right now we have constituent filters, and I need this to be a transaction email. So what I can do is click this change filter type, and it's going to give me a prompt of changing the type of an email, will remove any existing filters. So if you already created some filters, it would wipe those out. But in this case, I didn't start with any. So I'm going to change to transaction and click change type. And so now we'll see I have transaction filters here. And notice I have a whole list of all the transactions in my database. So I don't need to filter this. Again, when someone submits a donation through an online form, it'll just go directly to them and acknowledge that particular donation. But if you were to send a mass email, just so we can see what filters look like, I could click add filter. And let's say I only want to see donations from this year. So I could look up date. and I could change last week to this year. Click OK, so you can see my filter right here, and that's going to refresh my results and go from 1,300 to, looks like I have about 71 that were created this year. And I could add other include filters or exclude filters to really narrow down the list of transactions I'm wanting to acknowledge. But for our example today, I won't really need any filters, so I could technically take all of these out. But let's just jump to the design aspect. This is where we have a lot of features that we need to go over. So if I click on the design, you'll notice that there's some tabs or some buttons here near the top and 3 tabs. So we'll start with the settings tab. These are going to be the global or just the general options for your email template. So I can adjust the entire width of my email. For this case, I'm just going to set it to 500 pixels. I can change the background color. As you can see, it's going to change the entire background of my email. I'm going to leave it as white. And I can also change the default content area. So that's going to be each of these blocks. I could also change to a different color. So notice this is only the content background, but not the entire background. I'll also keep that to transparent. I can just click on this transparent icon up here. I also change the default icon and the default link color if I was to add any hyperlinks in here. If I click on rows, this is where I can add, I really think of these as containers where you can add content. So notice as I hover in the design of the email, there's some green highlighted areas. This one says structure, which is showing me that this is one row right here. And it has an image content block inside of it. So if I scroll down, you'll see I have another row right here. So where structure shows, and then I have a text block inside. And then down here, I have another row, also with a button block, and another row here, and one here that's locked. The footer content will always be locked, so I won't be able to edit this information. It's required for any mass email to have your organization information and unsubscribe links, but I can move this around if I decided to put this in a different spot, just by simply grabbing this icon here with the 4 arrows and dragging to a new position. So let's say I wanted to add 2 images side by side. What I could do is click on rows and see I have these 2 column rows, such as this 50-50 split, or I could have like a wide and a skinny format. I'll do this 50-50 split, and I'm going to put it right above this button. So it's just a matter of you can take any of these rows and drag it directly into the design of your email. So notice it's prompting you to drop content in here. So I now have options to drop content in a single row, or sorry, a single column, or one of these 2 columns here. So I'm going to click on content, and here's all the content we can add to our email. So we have text blocks, images, buttons, divider lines, social icons. You can add custom HTML or a video thumbnail. So first thing, I'll just drag 2 images into those 2 columns. See where it says drag it here, I can just release, and I'll drag another one over here and release. And now it'll prompt me to browse for images. So I can click browse, and this will pull up my file manager. So I'm going to click on my files, and you can create subfolders within the file manager. So if I wanted to create another folder, I could click this icon here, but I'll click on my Scott Images folder. And here I have the images I've already uploaded. If I wanted to upload a new one, I could click this icon, or I could even search for free photos directly inside the file manager. I'm going to place this Blossom Gardening one. I can just click Insert. And there she is. And I could also click Browse over here and do the same thing. And I'll just put this one here. 2 blossoms. Notice when I click on the image or click on this content block, I'll now get content properties. So this is affecting just this image. So not my entire email, but rather just this particular piece of content. So maybe I wanted to reduce the size of this image. or align it differently. I could also apply effects if I need to add like text overlay or a border or a background. I could do so by clicking on this button. And I can also link this button, or sorry, link this image. So if I wanted to allow the user to click on this image and be taken to another site or another web page, I could add a URL here, and that would allow this image to be clicked. And then there's some other options below, such as padding, and whether I want to hide this on desktop or mobile. Let's add another piece of content. So let's say I want to add some more text right above in a separate row. I could just drag that here. And so I have a text block here. If I click on a text block, once I click inside, notice now there's this text toolbar right above. So let's say instead of hi there, I wanted to insert a merge field for their informal name. So what I could do is highlight there and then click on more and click insert merge field. And I can look up informal name. And there it is, just click on that and click insert field. And now you'll see there'll be some asterisks and some curly brackets with informal name inside. And I'm just gonna put that comma right after that last asterisk. And so this will populate with the recipient's informal name that's on file in Bloomerang. You can see there's another merge field here for organization name, and then some other prompts in this template. And if I need to edit any other text, I could just highlight, and let's say I wanted to change this to bold, or if I needed to hyperlink anything, I could simply highlight any of these and click this insert edit link button. And now it'll allow me to hyperlink that particular piece of text. Okay. Let's go back to the content, just see what some of these else will look like. So if I click this divider, let's say I want to put this right above these two images, I could drag that there. And again, I could just click on the content block and adjust this particular divider line. Let's say I want it to be a little bit thicker. There we go. And we'll also add some social icons down here near the bottom. So if I drag social icons, then I click on this content block. Now I have content properties on the right, and I could change the collection I'm using. Let's say I want these dark gray circles. And in each of these fields here where it says URL, I could add my organization's Facebook page, Twitter handle, and Instagram page if I wanted to. And you could add other icons if you needed to. Let's say if you had a Spotify list going, you could add Spotify. Maybe I don't need LinkedIn, so I could just click delete. And I could even space these out if I wanted to. Okay. And then also, since it's a curious piece of content, the video block, if I was to, let's say, add that here, I could add a video URL. If I use a YouTube or Vimeo URL, it will automatically generate a thumbnail with a play icon over it. And then the user will be able to click on that thumbnail and be directed right to that video. And if I needed to delete a content block or a row, I can just click or hover over it. And then there's this trash can icon. Or I could use this history button. There's an undo button down here with history of up to 10 steps. Okay. Last is this button. I'm just going to edit this button to go to my giving page. Even though this is a confirmation email, let's say if we want to link it to something else, I could click on this button. And for the URL, I'll go to my Bloomerang giving form I've created. Copy the URL and paste that in there. And let's say I want to edit the content of this button. Maybe I'll just change this to not all caps. There we go. Okay. So that is all the content. Just quickly overviewing those. And lastly is I can preview my email template. So if I click preview layout, this is a really handy feature. I can see what it will look like for the most part on a desktop. So I can see even just making sure that my images are lined up how I'm wanting them to, that everything looks okay. And I can also click on mobile and see how it's going to respond on mobile devices. So notice that text isn't getting shrunk down, but rather it's being reconfigured in a way where it's still able to be easily read by your users. And notice the images are now stacked on top of each other versus just shrinking down side by side. And the button is a nice size too. So these are mobilely responsive. So your content will move and adjust according to the device that's viewing it. Let's say I didn't want to have these stacked on top of each other, but I would like to keep them side by side. I could click this X to go back to my design. And then on this structure here, I could do not stack on mobile. And I could even, if I wanted to, click on each image. And let's say if I wanted to hide on desktop or mobile, I could do so here. But just for this row in particular, I'm going to just select do not stack on mobile. And now notice if I go back to preview and select mobile, those will now be side by side. Okay. Last two little options, there's the Ahern audit. So if I click on this, it's going to scan my email and it's going to look for the U-test. You can read more about the U-test and why it should be used in particular fundraising terms and fundraising efforts, and also the Flesch-Kincaid reading level, which is just a standard of making sure that your email is on a level that everyone can read and understand well. And also the send test. I highly recommend sending test emails before sending to the hundreds or thousands of people you're going to be sending your mass email to. So you can send up to 3 tests at one time. So if I want to maybe put my work email, perhaps my personal email in here, maybe another coworker's email, that would be a good idea. And I could click send. It won't populate with donor information, but at least you'll get to see the full layout of your email as it comes in your inbox. All right, so if I'm happy with my design and if I'm happy with my filters, in this case I won't have any, then I can click Save and Preview up here near the top. And while that processes, it's going to be generating just a very helpful section up here. So it's going to be showing all the transactions that were found according to my filters. So here I had 1,332. And then notice out of all those donations or all those transactions, 107 of those donations actually had an email address attached to them. And then of those 107 emails, we are going to be skipping 29 of them. And if I want to see which ones are skipped, I can click this Skipped Recipients tab. And I can see that most of these are either bad email addresses. Here we have some that have opted out of mass email, or they have no matching email interests. And if I click Design Preview, this is really handy. I can see up to the first 100 recipients' emails with their information inside. So notice this one's going to Acme, and the informal name is Bugs, so it's populating right there. And I can even see that my organization name is populating in there just as I'm expecting. So I could click through 100 of these and just make sure that merge fields or donation information is at least looking correct for my end. And you can see that my information down here is now populated, and all these links should be working if I was to click on them. And once you're ready to send your mass email, you can click this Send button up the top, and you could choose to send right now, or you could schedule it for a later time. If I click Schedule for later, it will prompt me with a calendar, which I could maybe say I want to send this on Friday around 2:30 p.m. And it's going to be set to your user time. So mine is set to Eastern. So this should send around 2:30 on this Friday. So I'll go ahead and schedule this just so we can see what that looks like. So once I click schedule, now you'll see on this email templates page, we have my template I've created just now, and it's showing scheduled for Friday at 2:30. Perfect. So now if I want to apply this to my online giving form, so once someone submits this form, how do I make sure they get this new custom confirmation email that we created? I can click on settings. This is for administrators only. So if you're just a standard user, you'll either have to have that permission granted to you by another admin, or otherwise you won't be able to reach this section. So I'll click settings and website integration. I'm going to choose my online giving form. And here I have my COVID-19 form, so I'll click on that. And notice right here, it's currently set to the Bloomerang default. And right here, this prompt, it says, any transaction email with the purpose of acknowledgement can be sent as a confirmation email. So since we just made one, it should be available as an option. So if I click this down arrow, I have a few that are eligible, and we can see this new custom confirmation email that we just created. So then I can just click next and save and preview, and then I can click publish. And that's that. So now when someone is to go to my link here and submit a donation, they will receive that custom confirmation email that we just created. So that is creating and sending and applying a custom confirmation email very quickly. So I want to give you at least a couple seconds to ask any questions now, because then we're going to jump into the Mailchimp integration. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on QA, but I know John and Kristen are doing a good job of typing up answers too. Let's see. So real quick for some of these, editing the preview, you'd have to go back. So if I was to get to that preview page again, once I pull that up, so this one's already being scheduled, but let's say I wanted to check that preview again. If anything looks a little off, you won't be able to edit individual emails. It'd have to be the template itself. So nothing down here can be edited, but what I could do is to click make changes and go back to my design and fix whatever I need to. Donors that are added after the email is scheduled but before it's sent out. Yes, great question. They will be added. So the filters that you've applied will be applied at the moment the mass email is sent. So if you schedule this a week out in advance and you get new donors in that time, then they would be included. Okay, and yes, you can customize the donate button color and all that. And the design, if I was just to click on it, I have my content properties over here, and I can adjust how my button would look. I can even add some less radius to if I want a perfect square, and I can even add padding on top and bottom or left and right if I wanted to. And if organization is already using Mailchimp and has templates already created in Mailchimp, can we use those now? Yes, and that's exactly what we're going to get to. So let's just jump right into Mailchimp since we're about at the halfway mark. So the nice feature is if you are currently using Mailchimp, you can now push your contact list, your constituent list to your Mailchimp account, create your Mailchimp templates within Mailchimp, and then record those interactions back into Bloomerang. So I'm going to click email icon and click email settings. And then over here on the Mailchimp integration, I'll click edit. I already have mine set up, but there wouldn't be anything really striking on this page other than there'll be a button for activate. And it would then prompt you just to log into your Mailchimp account. So connecting is as simple as just knowing your Mailchimp login information and then allowing Mailchimp to access or to be communicating with your Bloomerang database. So you will activate that. So mine's already connected. And then you will have to have a Mailchimp audience in place. And an audience, just for kind of backup, is essentially like a list or a bucket of contacts in Mailchimp. So you have to have at least one place that you can send these contacts in Mailchimp. So I created one just called Bloomerang Audience. You could have any name you would like. And you could, if you have multiple audiences already set up in your Mailchimp account, then you would see all those options below. In this case, I just have one audience I've created. So this will be the only audience I will be pushing my contacts to. So I will click next. So another thing to consider is Bloomerang. We refer these to as email interests, and Mailchimp calls them groups. So these are the donor-facing or the recipient-facing categories that they can opt in or opt out of as far as which emails they would like to receive from your organization. So in this case, in Bloomerang, I have an update email interest, a newsletter email interest, and an event email interest. And I can add more if I would like. In Mailchimp, I had one called MC News, so I mapped it to newsletter. And same with events, I mapped it to my current Mailchimp one called MC Volunteering. But let's say I want to change, instead of updates to update, I wanted to have another, I could always map it to something else I have in Mailchimp. So maybe I had this MC donating one I've already created. And let's say for events, I actually want to create a new one. Notice that there is down here, new in parentheses. So if I was to select event new, this would create a new group in Mailchimp. So if you don't have any Mailchimp groups that seem like they're good fits for what you already have in Bloomerang, you could map brand new Mailchimp groups and those would be created. So I'll go ahead and create a new one. And I'll click next. And this will be where you can map merge fields. So for this screen, you can map up to 30 Bloomerang constituent fields. So keep in mind, these are only constituent fields. So it can't be donation information or interaction information, such as like volunteer hours or volunteer like location, stuff like that. So notice that email address will always be mapped to Mailchimp's email address field, since this is required. So this is already locked in that their Bloomerang primary email address will map to the Mailchimp email address. And here's some suggestions that it will, by default, suggest first name and last name, since those are required on every Bloomerang constituent. So I currently have first name in Bloomerang will be mapped to Mailchimp's first name and last name to Mailchimp's last name. And let's say I wanted to delete one, I could just delete. Let's say I don't want to push job title over. But I'm going to click Add Merge Field. And now I can select from any of my constituent fields. So let's say I wanted their, how about employer? And notice I don't have a Mailchimp field created for the employer already. So again, since it's showing employer parentheses new, this is going to tell me that this will create a new merge field in Mailchimp that I'm able to select. So I'm going to map employer to employer new. And I'll click Save. And that's the third step, and that is all you have to do for setup and to link your Mailchimp account. So as long as everything is mapped how you're wanting, then the next step is to create a Mailchimp template, which is very easy, and we're going to walk through it right now. So I can click Go to Email Templates. And again, I'll click New in the top right, and I'll select Mailchimp template this time. So first it will prompt you with a template name. So I will just call this Academy Class 513. Actually, let's just do Academy Class. For purpose, in this case, it is however you're wanting to record those interactions in Bloomerang, since every interaction needs a purpose behind it. So maybe I'll call this Impact and Cultivation. And you'll have to map at least one email interest for your Mailchimp template. So for this one, I will just do newsletter. And I will click Save. Now notice there's only 2 tabs on the Mailchimp template. So I only have this details and I have my filter section. There's no design tab since we are going to be designing the email in Mailchimp. So this is just building the list of people that you're wanting to push to Mailchimp. So I will only have constituent filters. And I'm starting with all of my active constituents in my database. Let's say I just want to reach out to my donors from this year so far. So I could click Add Filter, Has Transactions. I'm going to change transactions to specific transactions. And then below transaction filters, I'm going to click Add Filter. I'm going to look up date. And now I'm going to change last week to this year. And I'll click OK and OK. So this will be bringing me a list of all my constituents that have at least one transaction in 2020. So this dropped my list to 25. And I'm going to exclude organizations. So I'll click this blue OR, and I'm going to look up type. and then I'll select organization. So now I'm removing organizations from my list as well. Set removed one. Okay, so these are the contacts that I'm ready to push to Mailchimp. So my filters look good. These are the list of people I'm wanting. So I'll click save and preview. And this will be the exact same screen as if you're sending a mass email. So this will show the constituents found based on your filters. And of my 24 that were found, I only had 12 that had an email address. And of those 12, 2 are being skipped. And I can see why here. It looks like these 2 have opted out of emails. And I can also double check my merge fields so I can see how they're going to be mapping one last time. So once I'm on this screen, I have the option to either make changes again to my template or the filters that I have set, or I can push. So once I'm ready to do so, I can click push, and I can either choose to push now or schedule for later. And keep in mind, this is not sending your email. All this is doing is pushing a tag or this list of people to Mailchimp. So you will still need to go into Mailchimp and send the email in order to complete this entire task. So for one use case, let's say if you are the development person or the database person at your organization, and maybe you have a separate marketing person or even just an email person or team, really this would be where your job is done. So you could just generate the list of recipients you want to push, and then you could select push now. It's going to give you just a last warning of, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm ready, so I'll click yes. And this will be pushing that list. So I had 24, and it'll be pushing them, all those that are eligible to Mailchimp. So this should take just a few seconds to push, and it should give me a confirmation. And there we go. So it says my data was pushed to Mailchimp. And this is very key. So it says in Mailchimp, filter for the tag that was created. So the tag will be the name of the template, and it's going to be the date and the time of the push. So looks like it's 2:37 Eastern time. So now I'm going to go to Mailchimp, and we'll see what this looks like. So I'm going to pull up my Mailchimp account real fast. So here's the Mailchimp dashboard. And I'm going to go to my campaigns. And I'm going to just replicate one of the campaigns I've already sent, just so we can get a quick campaign together. Okay, so I've already designed something in Mailchimp. So here's just a newsletter I made in Mailchimp's tools. I've already included a subject called May newsletter, and I already edited the from details and the subject line and all that. The important part is right here in the recipients. So if I click edit recipients, notice that it's going to ask who are you sending this campaign to. So I have my audience, which I only have one, but if I had multiple, I would choose my Bloomerang audience I've connected. And then here's the important part, is the segment or tag. So I'm going to click this drop down menu, and now you'll notice right here we have the title of our Mailchimp template, so Academy Class May. And then you can see here's today's date, so 05/13/20 and 2:37. So that's when we pushed our template. So I'll click this one. So you will need to click the tag you created in order to generate those interactions in Bloomerang. So if I was just to include my entire audience and not select this particular tag, it won't be creating those interactions. So it's important to select the exact tag you're wanting to record those interactions for. If you need to include multiple tags, let's say you had a previous tag and I want to include another tag, Mailchimp, you're allowed to customize. So maybe I want to do a group or segment. I could select this, and it's kind of like, in a way, Bloomerang's report filters. I could just choose a different tag. So maybe I would do tags down here, and I would do this tag, and I could add another one here, and I could do another tag. Let's say I want to do the previous tag I created. So this would be one way if you needed multiple tags to be included. You just have to at least select, you must select a tag in order for those interactions to be recorded. So I'm just going to keep it to the current one we have. So just those. Okay, and I'll click save. Oh, one thing to keep in mind, sorry if I click edit recipients, here's where I can see my merge tag. So I can have first name and last name, and I could add more if I needed to inside my the design of my Mailchimp template. So if I wanted to include that employer, since I pushed that over, I could include a merge field for, a merge tag for employer as well. All right, so all this looks good. Notice that the recipient count is slightly lower in this case. Mailchimp does have a separate way of scanning emails and confirming which emails are valid. So don't fret if the recipient lists are slightly off, and there's really nothing as far as being able to understand how the scan works across both. So in this way, Mailchimp, in a nutshell, they have their own scan for emails that is separate from Bloomerang's, as well as who is eligible for emails. So in this case, they probably scanned some of my test emails that I have entered in and determined that those are probably either invalid or not going to work for what Mailchimp would like to use. So that's my 10 recipients. And if I'm ready, or if you have your marketing team or your email person is ready, they could click send, or they could schedule it in Mailchimp. So I'll go ahead and click send now. And Mailchimp is going to start processing that. Probably take a few minutes for them to send that out, so it'll go out shortly. So I could track the performance in Mailchimp. They'll probably give you the most detailed statistics for Mailchimp clicks and the Mailchimp performance. But now if I go back to my database, it might just take a few seconds to in order to have Mailchimp send that out. But I'll go to my email templates. And now notice this. Let's say I'll just filter for my Mailchimp template, so I can just only highlight the Mailchimp bubble. We'll see it was pushed to Mailchimp today at 2:37. So it hasn't updated to show sent. You can see my previous attempts. Once it is finally sent through the whole entire queue in Mailchimp, it will show as sent in Mailchimp. So if I was to refresh this page, it might show me sent. Let's see. So not quite yet. But what I can do is then click on my Academy class template. And let's just go back to Mailchimp, see if that has finally sent. And still looks like Mailchimp is sending. But essentially, just so we can see from my past ones, why I created some prior to this, if I click on my email templates that were already sent, so let's say this one from a few days ago. If I click on the details tab, you'll notice that I can click refresh tracking info. So that way, if I need to see anything that was clicked, or if I want to run a report in Bloomerang, I'd be able to see those reports in Bloomerang by refreshing this tracking info here. So if I want to report on my Mailchimp interactions that have been created, I can run a quick report. So I'll click reports over here and click go to report list. And I'll start a new report, build from scratch. And I'm going to select interactions because I want to look up particular interactions in my database. And you'll see here's some, looks like, that were sent out earlier today. But we've created a new filter specifically for interactions. So if I click add filter, I can choose channel. And we have a new channel called Mailchimp Mass Email. So I can click on that and click OK. And this is only going to show me my Mailchimp Mass Email interactions. So let's just see if this is sent. If I go back to my email box, or some of my email templates, and there we go. So now it shows updated. So sent in Mailchimp today at 2:44, just in the minute we looked at it. So this has been sent. So I could click on my Academy class May and details. And if I wanted to, again, I could refresh the tracking info here. So now if I go back to my report, I can probably hit refresh. There we go. So now we can see my interactions jumped up another few numbers. So in this case, what I could do is, let's say I wanted to group these by the subject, I could always click subject and group by this column, so I could see how particular newsletters are performing. And I could even add a column for, let's say, clicked links or has any clicked links. Just so if I need to see any of that information. And I could do the same thing for mass emails as well in Bloomerang. Let's say I wanted to include those. Maybe I just want channel again and mass email. So now I'm including both my Mailchimp and my mass email. So notice this is a lot larger number. So that's just a very quick and general overview of reporting on these interactions that are recorded. So I know we have about 14 minutes, looks like. So I want to open the floor for more questions. I know there's been a lot typed out already, so I'm going to try to work through these and see if there's any that might be repeats that we can be able to answer live today. So let's see. I'll kind of start from the top. Let's see, how do you create different segmented lists? So really, sky's the limit on the type of list you want to create. So if I want to go back to another Mailchimp template, really, it's a matter of who you're wanting to reach as far as your constituents. So you can use any constituent filter, but it's a matter of applying the filters correctly. So if I only wanted to reach out to, let's say, people who were created in Bloomerang this year, I could do that by clicking create a date and during this year. Or I could even include those that are on a certain committee. I have a custom field here. So really, sky's the limit. It's just a matter of setting up your filters correctly. And if you need help with that, you can always click this question mark and chat our support team. We are the experts when it comes to creating filters and getting you the list you need. So feel free to chat us, and we'd be happy to build out the segment or the list that you need. Yeah, other great questions. As far as the email interests, you can edit and add multiple interests. So if I click on the email icon and email settings, I can click email interests. I can change the names of these just by clicking on these and updating them. And notice how I can see how they're mapped right here. So if I want to change this, and I can also add new ones. If I want to add a new email interest, let's say for this one, I might just call it COVID-19. So notice I don't have one called COVID-19 at Mailchimp, so I could just create a new one and save. And so then when I push a template that has an email interest, it would create that email interest in Mailchimp for us. Okay, yeah. And just to clarify real quick, I've seen a couple questions of this. You will not need to use Mailchimp moving forward. So this is just something that we have offered where if you have a team or if you are very comfortable with Mailchimp templates and designing emails in Mailchimp, since Mailchimp has been known for their email tools and their email design capabilities, we wanted to offer a way to contact and really create a touch to your constituent base using Mailchimp templates. So if you're comfortable with Mailchimp and the interface, then you can continue to use Mailchimp and simply push your list to Mailchimp. If you've never used Mailchimp, or if you are not really interested in Mailchimp, then by all means, you can just continue to make mass emails in Bloomerang, and we will continue to offer that service. And you can also get more robust lists and more personalized emails using your Bloomerang constituent data, such as sending transaction-based emails or interaction-based emails. So you do have some more options as far as personalizing the emails with more information. But this is just simply a way that you can include Mailchimp in your workflow and Bloomerang if you choose to do so. Let's see, I'm gonna try to go through some of these other questions. Clients want e-newsletter to go to a personal email address. So we will, as far as Bloomerang, we will push the primary email address for that constituent. So if I was to go to a profile, let's just look up John Smith. Got a couple John Smiths in here. If I click on profile, I can add multiple email addresses, but we will only send and push the primary. So I suppose if you wanted to make sure that a personal email address is being used for a constituent, I would recommend setting that to their primary email. And that's just a matter of clicking edit here and then making sure this is checked here for primary and saving. And so if I have multiple emails, let's say I want to add another one, just work@email.com. Let's say it's their work email. I could check this to primary if I wanted, and now this will change their primary email address. Okay. Yes, latest gift date. Since that is technically a constituent field, that can be pushed. So there are particular constituent merge fields that will include things like latest gift date or latest gift amount, first transaction date, first transaction amount. Those are always connected to the constituent. However, if you needed to drill down to a specific transaction or a specific interaction, that won't be able to get pushed. So maybe if you wanted, I needed their latest gift that was in 2018, or I needed their latest revenue gift or their latest pledge, things like that wouldn't be able to get pushed over, but the more general, such as first and last, or most recent transaction would be able to be pushed over. Let's see. Yeah, Christy, that's a great question. A really situation. So I would recommend thinking about how you want to be using Bloomerang. So if you do have a large email list, but most of them are prospects, you might consider continuing just to communicate them through Mailchimp. That way you're not, as you were mentioning, not flooding your database with all these profiles that really aren't true prospects or donors that are worth engaging. So we kind of recommend, in a way, to a rule of thumb is, for those that you have the most information about, or if they have made a gift, then those are very good options to include in your Bloomerang database. But if you have just a large list of maybe 1,000 or a couple thousand email addresses that don't have names attached, or maybe they're from years ago, you might reconsider adding all of those into Bloomerang. That way you're only communicating and reporting on those that are true prospects, or who are active donors, or maybe just missed donors after a certain period of time. Yeah, so if you have different contacts in each, so let's say it kind of goes along the same line. So if you have a different contact list in Mailchimp and a different list in Bloomerang, so do we need to integrate these first in order to send to both? So you can push your Bloomerang list to Mailchimp. So sorry, my screen, I'm talking too much. So in this way, let's say I had a different, let me go back to my campaigns here. So if I had 5,000 emails in Mailchimp, but maybe in my Bloomerang database, I only have 500, how do I send to both? So it would just be a matter of, in your campaign, if I was to, I'll replicate this one again, I could include that tag that I pushed. So if I wanted to push my entire Bloomerang constituent list over to Mailchimp, I could do so, and they'd be in that audience. So I could edit my recipients. In this case, you would have to use that group or new segment. And then what you could do is, maybe I only want those with another tag I used in Mailchimp prior to Bloomerang. So you can include tags outside of Bloomerang, and then you could also include your created tag that you pushed over. I know it might be a little hazy, but as far as the functionality, yes, you can send to both your Mailchimp audience as well as the Bloomerang tag that you created with one email if you'd like to. Let's see. Import context into Bloomerang so we can track how much you've been contacting in actions. So if you do decide to import context into Bloomerang, the best way to do that would be through an import. You would need at least a first name and a last name, as well as an email address, if you want to be able to send mass emails to them. So you could click this import icon down here and select new, and you could do so if I was to do new import, I could do constituents right here. And this would allow you to import that large list of contacts into Bloomerang if you would choose to do so. Let's see. Bloomerang database is set up in a way that there may be multiple records for one couple, one naming one of the spouses, another naming both. Yeah, this is a great question. So it's really dependent on the number of emails. So if they all have a different email address, so let's say there's John Smith, and then you had another one called John and Sue Smith. If it's the same email address, then only one email address will get pushed. The tricky part, I guess I would say, is that it's not generally a good idea to have the same email address applied to multiple constituents, as the merge field data that you're expecting could be, and I had to probably confirm this with our team, but it might either be either the most recent or the first profile that you're pushing over. I probably have to confirm that, but as far as checking for duplicates, if you were to send or push a list of emails and an email is shared, just that one email just will get pushed over. But as far as a duplicate scan, same thing with Mailchimp. I don't know the exact way that they scan for duplicates, but they will only send to one email as well. So if one email address is already in your Mailchimp account, then I believe they would catch that as a duplicate, and they would only send to an email address once. Yes, great question from James. Yeah, so for opting out, if they were already opted out from Mailchimp, then Mailchimp would most likely be skipping over them in their email. So that's why, again, the recipient list might be a little different. So when it's getting ready to send, you may notice that there could be a few that are a few missing from what you pushed, and that could be because they've already opted out from Mailchimp interests or another reason. And same for the opposite. So if you were to send a Mailchimp template and someone opts out clicking on a Mailchimp link, that will communicate back to Bloomerang, and then they will be showed as opted out in Bloomerang as well. So that way, if you were to send a Bloomerang mass email apart from Mailchimp, you would be skipping them automatically. So we would be respecting their decision to opt out of emails. So just to clarify a couple key things I've seen in here, when we say push to Mailchimp, that is pushing that list of contacts to Mailchimp ready to be sent. So it's not actually sending an email. So when you click push now, it's not sending that email, but rather it's just sending that list to Mailchimp. And those interactions won't be created until that is sent from Mailchimp using that particular tag. All right, I think that is probably going to about do it for today. If you have any questions, feel free to type those in now, and we'll make sure that we get to those. Or if you have maybe a little more of a complicated question or something you'd like to have someone walk you through it, you can always, again, just email us or live chat our support team. We'd be happy to help you set up Mailchimp and or report or get anything you need to get going with mass emails in Bloomerang. So thanks so much for everyone for participating so much, asking lots of questions. I hope everyone's staying safe out there and doing well. Be on the lookout for some more Academy classes, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.